tutorial is for 5th grade, Module 6, Lesson 3. On Lesson 3, we're going to continue looking at the different parts of a coordinate plane. So I have a grid in front of me with some different points labeled. I have some directions that I'm going to follow to help me set up my grid. The first one says construct an x-axis that passes through points A and B. So if you'll notice, along the bottom of the grid I have an A and a B. So I need to draw a line that passes through A and B, and that will be my x-axis. So there's my x-axis. It has run through both points A and B, and I labeled it with an X to show that it's the x-axis. My next direction tells me to construct a perpendicular y-axis that passes through points C and F. So it's going to be perpendicular to the x-axis. It will run through both points F and C, and that will be my y-axis. So here's my y-axis. It runs through points F and C, and I labeled it Y. The next step tells me to label the origin as 0. Again, that would be our starting point in the lower corner. So I'll label this as 0. The next step says the x-coordinate of B is 9. And we're to label the whole numbers along the x-axis. So if I go across the x-axis to the B, I know that that is 9. So I've been given that information. Now I just need to fill in the rest of the points. So if I look from 0 to 9, I can see that every other square is going to be a whole number. So I'll just mark 1, 2, 3, and I'll continue across the x-axis until I have all of my whole numbers plotted. So the x-axis goes from 0 through 10. The next step says the y-coordinate of C is 8 1/2. So if I go along my y-axis up to the C, this point is 8 1/2. That tells me that the line below it would be 8, and the line above it would be 9. So every other square on this axis is a whole number as well. So I will just fill in the rest of those, working my way down until I get back to the origin, which is 0, and that top one would be 10 as well. So I have my x-axis and my y-axis complete. The next section actually asks a variety of questions about this plane, so I'm just going to read the questions and keep the plane showing on the screen. The first question says, identify all of the points that have an x-coordinate of 3. That means I'm going to start at the origin and move across to the 3 on the x-axis. So the points that would have 3 for the x-coordinate would be any points above the 3 on this line. So you can see that the M would have an x-coordinate of 3, and the N would have an x-coordinate of 3. The next question says, identify all of the points that have a y-coordinate of 4 1/2. So I'm going to travel up my y-axis to the 4 1/2 mark. That would be right in between the 4 and 5. So these points would have a y-coordinate of 4 1/2. F, E, H, and K. All 4 of those points are across from the 4 1/2 point on the y-axis. The next question says, which point is located 4 1/2 units from the y-axis? When it says from the y-axis, that means 4 1/2 units away from the y-axis. So I'm going to travel 4 1/2 units away from the y-axis, and that would be along this line here. And I just travel down that line, and the G is 4 1/2 units away from that y-axis. Likewise, the next question says, which point is located 2 units along the x-axis? Well, along the x-axis means that we're going to stay on the x-axis. So if I start at the origin, stay on the x-axis to the point that's at the 2, that point would be point A. Now I'm going to look at a couple of the points and identify their coordinate pairs. So for example, if I look at the K, to figure out the coordinate pair for the K, I would move over along my x-axis, and I see that the K is above the 8.5 mark. So I'm going to say it's at the ordered pair 8.5 for its x-coordinate, and then if I look across, I can see the K is at 4.5 for the y-coordinate. So the ordered pair is 8.5, 4.5. Let's do the same thing for point I. Start at the origin, move along the axis until I'm under the I. That's at 5.5. So that's going to be the x-coordinate. Point I is across from the 3 on the y-axis. So that's the y-coordinate. Its ordered pair is 5.5, 3. I can reverse this now. I can take a look at an ordered pair and figure out what point is at that ordered pair. For example, if I had the ordered pair 3, 1.5, that means I would travel over 3, up 1.5, and that would be point M. Or if I had the ordered pair 0, 4.5. If 0 is the x-coordinate, I would not move over on the x-axis. I would stay at the 0 and then just move up 4.5, and that would be point F. So the ordered pair for point F is 0, 4.5. Here's a question. It says, which point has an equal x and y coordinate? Meaning that we would move over the same number of units that we would move up. And if I look, I can see that if I move over 8 and up 8, I'm at point L. So point L would have an ordered pair of 8, 8. Both the x and the y coordinates are equal. And if I were asked to give the ordered pair for where the two axes meet, the y-axis and the x-axis, well, we know they meet right here. That means that they meet at the ordered pair of 0, 0. We're not moving over any and we're not moving up any. So its ordered pair is 0, 0. And again, that's also known as the origin. So there we have all the different parts that make up a coordinate plane.